and welcome to the Fearless Money Management Podcast, where we empower women to take control of their finances. I'm Claire Strong, and today I'm chatting with Lisa Risser, who's a certified CPA and all-around financial expert about the financial considerations when choosing a college. Hi, Lisa. How are you?
Hi, Claire. How are you doing?
I am doing great. And I'm so looking forward to this episode because my 16-year-old is kind of a year away from all of this. So this is good prep for me. And I know that there are going to be lots of mums listening to this episode whose kids are about to start college, or maybe they're in my boat where they're a year out. But either way, this is so timely, isn't it?
It is. It's great timing as a lot of seniors, high school seniors, are trying to figure out where they're going to go to college. And quite often, they don't think enough about the financial components and considerations with picking the right university.
So let's talk about that, because that's what we're going to focus on this episode. So, basically what to consider from a financial standpoint when even choosing a college. So, first of all, let's break it down. Talk to me about the different options, because I hear about community college being cheaper. I then hear about private universities being really expensive. So let's discuss first of all the different options as far as where our kids can go and how much that's going to set us back as parents.
Well, and a lot of this is not only what I've done in my research, but also I have two kids who went through college. And I also saw a lot of their friends and what they went through as well. And it's very expensive. And understanding that the implications, if you pick something that's going to be very expensive or you're going to have significant fees or student loans, it can take you forever to pay that off. And I don't think it's discussed enough because everybody's so excited about going off to school, the parents and the kids, and they don't often think about how much that's actually going to cost and what are some of the different options.
So what I found to be interesting, Lisa, because I'm obviously originally from the UK, and when I moved here, and especially when my eldest daughter started high school, because this is the first time I've experienced the high school situation in the US, because obviously I was educated in the UK. But there seems to be a lot, certainly at my daughter's school, a lot of emphasis by her peers, and I'm guessing her peers' parents, about which college you're going to or which school you're going to. And it has to be one of the, prestigious schools ideally, or certainly a university of, or whatever. And then I was in a meeting with her teachers, with my daughter's teachers, and they were saying to me how much they are actually promoting community college first, because they don't think that a lot of the kids are ready to leave home, especially this lot of kids that are going off to university like now or in a year's time, partly because of COVID. That set them back a lot, especially emotionally and also educationally too. But they said that they're actually encouraging a lot of their kids to go to community college first, at least for the first couple of years, and then transfer, partly or in most part because of the cost. And so, talk to me a little bit about that. So what are the advantages? Let's start first of all with community college. Why should that be a consideration for us parents?
Well, a lot of it is consideration is just some of the things that you talked about was one, a lot of these kids are not ready to go off and go somewhere else for a 4-year university. They're just not emotionally mature enough. They were set back during COVID. And, we tend to, as parents, our generation has taken care of everything for our kids and frankly, not always set them up to be living independently like we were when we were, teenagers. And
I'm guilty of that. I'm guilty of that. I try not to, but it's hard sometimes. You just can't help but help. Can you as a mom?
Exactly. But when we talk about just the financial pieces of it, community college is a great option. And it's especially great for students who, again, they may not be ready, and it's also the cost piece. So the cost for community college, the average tuition is about $3,700 per year. and which is not that much. If you look at in-state tuition at a public university, that just the tuition alone is over $11,000. And if you're talking about out-of-state tuition, that could be about $30,000 a year.
It's crazy. And my eldest, who is, about a year off going through this process, she's wanting to study fashion design, which I know we're going to discuss subjects like this actually later on in our conversation. So maybe she won't be, she may not be studying fashion design after this episode. But the point is, a lot of those universities are specialist universities. They're very small niche colleges, and their fees, Lisa, are astronomical. I nearly had to, have a lay down after looking at some of their fees.
Well, private universities can cost just the tuition between $35,000 up to $70,000 just for tuition. So when you take that, then you take the cost of living elsewhere. If you're in community college, you can't live at home. So you could save those expenses, the living expenses, and have very low cost tuition for the first 2 years with a community college. And it's a significant amount of savings. In addition, a lot of community colleges have programs where after 2 years, you have a very high likelihood that you could transfer into an in-state public university. So maybe you can't get into an in-state public university in your state as a freshman. But if you go to community college, you have a much, much higher probability of getting in. So you can graduate from the university of your choice, have in-state tuition. So you do community college for 2 years, you saved all that money, then you have in-state tuition for the following 2 years. And that's a huge amount of savings, because otherwise, unless your parents, your seniors' parents, if you've got a lot of money to pay for private university and all the living expenses and so forth, but the average family just can't afford that. And it's so different now than when we were going to college. I went to the University of Washington for undergrad, and it was $1,500 a quarter for tuition. So I could work and I could pay for college, as I was working and going to school. But that's just not the case anymore.
No.
And I think a lot of us parents forget what the costs actually are now and how much higher they are, and that we have to think about it differently, because we didn't have to think as much about the finances of universities before, but we do now. And the last thing we want to do is have our kids set up to where they're spending, their standard of living after graduating is so poor because the student loans are so high, and they can spend 10 years minimum paying off student loans. And in the meantime, it's overwhelming to them. And so we want to make sure that we're really looking at all of the financial considerations, starting with the tuition piece, and really looking at, is a private university, is that really, is that the best option? Can you afford it? Can your kids afford whatever student loans they may end up having? Or should you seriously look at some other options? I have friends whose kids went to community college and lived at home for 2 years. I'm in San Diego, and then their kids transfer to Berkeley and they graduate from Berkeley. Nobody knows, and nobody asks, did you start off in community college? The only thing somebody's going to see is that you graduated from Berkeley.
Yes. And I think as mums, as parents, I think this is the battle certainly I'm going to have with my, current 16-year